How do you find educational information about kink online? Well, that's easy, right? Just ask Google or ChatGPT. Even here, type in a couple of hashtags or keywords and it pops up all over social media. Okay, rephrase. How do you find accurate and trustworthy educational information about kink online? You know, that takes consent and ethics and safety into account. Also accounts for the fact that all of our experiences are different, all of our needs are different, and there's not just one way to do things. Let's talk a little bit about how to vet our kink educators. Just because somebody is charismatic on social media, or they have a lot of followers, maybe they have a fancy looking website, they've published a book, they teach classes, it doesn't necessarily mean that they know what they're talking about. That along with some of the great nuggets they're dropping, they aren't also giving dangerous information, reinforcing stereotypes and stigma about all the things kink really is not, or using their status as an educator to attract partners or get play, or using that credibility as an educator for other less than desirable reasons. And when it comes to assessing credibility, most kink educators don't have those fancy letters behind their names. But is that a benchmark we should be evaluating our educators by anyway? Because those fancy letters don't necessarily mean jack. Plenty of folks that are self-educated and have lots of lived experience are great educators. And there's a lot to be said for educators with firsthand experience as opposed to theoretical things that they've learned in books. And to get those letters behind one's name takes privilege, money and time that a lot of us can't afford. And if we only used academic credentials as a benchmark, we would be leaving out the voices of tons of marginalized educators that have lots of valuable information. And considering how much real-world power dynamics seep into our kink play and communities, those are the voices we need to hear more of. Here's some kink educator red flags that you can look to when you're evaluating educational information online and the people that it comes from. A large following and popularity does not equal credibility. And are these people always surrounded by constant drama, getting into arguments? Is there a refusal to engage in meaningful discourse with their critics? On social media especially, we can't be all serious all the time. It's fun to make some entertaining videos, do trends, even some thirst trappy stuff here and there. But when you look at their social media presence as a whole, is there a tendency to prioritize showing off, being edgy, showing off partners or play over giving out educational information? What about absolutist language and the lacking of nuance? Subs always this, doms must always that. There is one way to do blah. If you're not doing this, then you're doing it wrong. Are their preferences and their experiences presented as universal? Do they emphasize conformity and prescribed roles and behaviors? Do they encourage that those learning seek out multiple sources and get diverse perspectives? Or do they shame or belittle or devalue those who do things differently? Are they open and honest about their background and experiences and qualifications? Again, that doesn't have to be letters behind the name or slapping down this heavy resume. There are plenty of folks that are newer to kink, that are younger, that have a lot to contribute and who are great educators. Are they upfront with that, or do they embellish, exaggerate, or cover up their perceived lack of experience that there's nothing wrong with? We are all human, even us educators. We are learning and evolving and changing our minds and our perspectives all the time. And you know what? Sometimes we are wrong. Sometimes we learn something that changes our teaching perspective. So Can that person admit when they're wrong? Can they admit, hey, I learned about a new diverse perspective I didn't know about, so I'm changing the way I teach about this thing based on that. And a couple of things that may seem obvious, but in practice, sometimes they skate right by us. Do they prioritize consent and communication? Do they promote harmful or abusive practices? And even if that's not something you recognize, what are other people saying? Or are enough of them saying it over a period of time where it seems like it might be a where there's smoke, there's fire kind of situation? And lastly, the vibe. Sometimes you just get a vibe and you don't have to know why. You don't have to be able to explain it. Trust your gut. Your gut knows more than you think. Now, those are a good start, but definitely not everything. I'd love to hear from you. What are some of the red flags that you look for when evaluating the accuracy and credibility of kink educators? Also, what are some of the green flags, the things that make you go, mwah? And with all that, of course, I know how hard it is to find good kink information and credible educators. So I want to remind you about the free DS Dynamics Virtual Summit coming up on April 8th. 20 classes, online, free, taught by some of the most trusted and well-known names in kink education. Like Midori, Evie Lupine, Princess Rara from Pink Kink Podcast, Miriam Green from Wicked Grounds, Luna Matatas, me, and a bunch more. We'll be teaching about a variety of need-to-know topics and giving you free tools to go on in your journey as well. So what's the catch? Well, the catch is the DS Summit only happens once a year. So make sure you get your name on the list before it's gone. See you there.